We have a lot of developing news, including the tariffs being slapped on Australia when it comes to steel and aluminium. No exemption granted by the Trump White House. Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. And Andrew, over a number of years, we spoke about our government's coalition at the time, unable to get phone calls to the Chinese leadership when they'd slapped tariffs on Australia. Now, it seems our Prime Minister's unable to get the President of the United States, our great ally, on the phone either.
Extraordinary events, Kieran, and Sky News can reveal there have been repeated attempts by the Prime Minister to get another phone call with Donald Trump after their February 11 conversation, where Donald Trump said great consideration would be given to giving Australia an exemption on steel tariffs. And so far, the President hasn't agreed to that phone call. So just repeating, I've heard from senior government sources that there have been regular requests made, the term regular was used to me, for a conversation between Prime Minister Albanese and President Trump, and that has not occurred. Crystal Wu, our reporter, was at the press conference where she asked the Prime Minister, have you tried to set up a phone call? And he pretty much indicated that, well, I think he said requests will continue to be made, confirming this story.
We have continued to put in a request for another discussion with President Trump. I note that these decisions have been made and have varied at times.
Friends should pick up the phone, shouldn't they?
We've engaged. We've engaged, including through writing, including at senior levels of the government. People would be aware. The Treasurer, the Trade Minister, a range of the Foreign Minister have all visited and have all engaged.
So we can also reveal this afternoon, Kieran, that Kevin Rudd, the ambassador to Washington, was informed of the US decision not to grant an exemption in a face-to-face meeting with the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and the US Trade Ambassador Jamieson Greer at about 6 o'clock this morning Australian time. As that meeting was going on, I am told, the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Levitt, told an Australian journalist from the Sydney Morning Herald, as the meeting was still going on, that Australia wasn't getting that exemption. One senior source in government has even said to me this morning, after the Prime Minister's press conference, Kieran, that we were never getting this, in their view, and that there was a ray of light given by that conversation with the Prime Minister and the President, and that continued to be given in subsequent meetings. Obviously, the Treasurer has been over there, the Deputy Prime Minister, but in their view, we were always going to end up where we were with the rest of the world. Over the weekend, the Australian government put together a written offer. I can't find out, and the Prime Minister hasn't given us that because they want to keep their cards close to their chest on further negotiations, to the American administration, to the Trump administration, seeking that exemption, and that has obviously been unsuccessful. Now, the issue is steel and aluminium today, but there is a view at the top of the Australian government, Kieran, that the Americans will continue to buy our steel. There's that need there, with a 25% tariff, with a markup. And that's worth between $400 million and $1 billion. The big concern is that Donald Trump has foreshadowed further tariffs. On our agricultural exports, for example, will it happen? It's going worldwide. On our pharmaceutical exports. I can also reveal Korea, they've been in touch with our government. They got a similar response to us, a refusal of an exemption. Now, American trade is $100 billion of it. $30 billion is what we sell to them. $70 billion is what we buy from them. So we talk about that trade surplus. Compare it to China. There's $330 billion, $230 billion what we sell to them, $100 billion that we buy from them. So what you can see here is $30 billion of trade at risk. But in many instances, and that's what the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister have been saying, Kieran, the belief is Americans will continue to buy it, and they, in fact, will simply suffer from higher prices because of what the American government's doing here.
And you've also got that other complexity with BlueScope having a US presence as well. So that's, again, not all bad for that operation.
Absolutely. And in that sense, the view firmly within the senior levels of government is today is a bad day, no question about it, but we could be in for worse days in terms of trade. That's the fear. Any negotiations that go on now, any phone call that happens now, any visit that happens now, dare I say it, in the context of an election, it would have to be after the election, has to be trying to carve out some exemption there. But as a senior person in government said to me a short time ago, Kieran, the UK and France visited the White House and they haven't got any exemption either.
Yes, indeed. No exemptions, Andrew. And Peter Navarro has reiterated that this morning off the back of this announcement that their exemptions didn't work in the first Trump administration. He looks like he's got an even more... for the viewers who don't know Navarro, he is an absolutely trade hawk. He's someone who has been arguing for tariffs for many years. He's around Trump. He's got the president's ear. And this is... You know, we've talked about this as being a seismic shift in terms of international relations, the president. I don't think it's an overstatement to say it is in the world of trade as well, Andrew. You see the reaction on the markets daily.
Well, he gave false hope, Donald Trump, didn't he? It's as simple as that. In that conversation with Anthony Albanese, and we saw him emerge and give a 9 a.m. press conference with some relief. The government was under a bit of pressure on various issues in Parliament at the time. But, I mean, this is kind of manna from heaven, I've got to say, for Peter Dutton. I mean, and the irony of it, Scott Morrison must be sitting back laughing. Labor was smashing me for saying none of your officials can get a call with the Chinese government. You can't even get a call at the moment with the US president.